I'm Dave Overkill from the band Destructor, a heavy metal band based out of Cleveland, Ohio. Our inception was 1984, so we've been around about 33 years now. I'm the singer and guitar player of the band, and I probably started playing guitar when I was about 13 years old. Was big time into 70s hard rock, Ted Nugent, Aerosmith, Kiss, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Aerosmith, all that kind of stuff. Basically influenced me to start playing music, and started getting together with like-minded guys, and I think met Matt in 1984. It was all over after that.
Matt Flammable. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, and play the drums. Well, I try to. I attempt.
Okay, my name is Tim Hammer, aka Frederick. I've been with Destructor for about 4 years now. 2014, I think, is when I wanted to revamp the band again. I came back with Matt because he was out of the band for a second there also, and I came back with him. And as soon as I got in the room with these guys, it was explosive. We got a really good chemistry together in this lineup right now.
Hi, my name's Nick Annihilator. I've been in Destructor since 2012, and I'm from Warren, Ohio.
The band basically began out of a high school. Pat Rabid, Paul Warhead, and myself were all in the same grade. We all graduated together, and we were all playing music. So we used to go to Paul's house and we'd jam in his garage until the cops showed up and made us stop playing. But we decided it's time to get ourselves a rehearsal place. So we started renting a rehearsal place, and I think it was like in 1983. I graduated in 82. We came up with the name Destructor. It's kind of influenced by the band Exciter. They had a song called Destructor as well. I think it's spelled different though. And then we met Matt in 1984, and we decided this is the lineup. This is the band Destructor. We had a different drummer back then. He was a good drummer, but he just didn't fit like Matt. And Matt really set the tone for the band with his antics and the power that he plays. So
I was working with Jim Haymar, the singer from Breaker, and the bass player, the original bass player that joined them, Ian Shipley. I was playing in a band called it was Holy Terror, and then we changed our name to something else, and we were practicing in like a Scorpions, Iron Maiden, UFO cover band and stuff, and then Breaker offered Jim Haymar and Ian the positions in their band, and I was left out in the open. I was like, well, what do I got to do now, But Ian assured me that he had some people that he knew that he could hook me up with, and it happened to be these guys. And I remember going down and listening to them, their demo tape that they had, and I was laughing because the music was so good, and it made me laugh, and they thought I was laughing at them. And it was kind of a quirky moment. That's how I got started in the band.
Destructor's sound, really we're a soup. Like a lot of bands, we come up with a lot of our riffs and stuff and lyrical things are from things that influence me. A lot of times it's like things that happening in the world, stuff like that. I mean, I used to listen to a lot of, I still like it, but a lot of Discharge and punk, GBH, stuff like that when the band was first starting. So it was kind of like some punk influences mixed with the lyrics, but the music was more traditional. And really, as far as the music goes, it just happens. I mean, we were never like, we're going to be like this band or we'd be like that band. It just sort of started coming out, and you sort of develop your own songwriting style. We came out around the same time as Megadeth and Metallica and Armored Saint and all these bands. So, I've had people ask me before, so you really influenced by these guys? I was like, no, I was influenced by the same bands that those guys were influenced as well. and it was just kind of cool to be part of those golden years where heavy metal was really getting into the thrash and getting harder and harder in the early 80s, and being part of that is something that we're pretty proud of. And for another side note, a lot of people always ask, so where'd you get your name from, Dave Overkill? And we always, started like surnames. Mine came from high school, and it wasn't from the band Overkill, it was from the Motorhead album, Overkill. And for a while, that was like my favorite record, and I used to play that song over and over and over again, so that's where I got my name from. Really, a lot of the songs came just from high school days. I think two songs we played last night at Frost and Fire was Iron Curtain, and that evolved out of a jam in high school, and Blackest Night was the very first official song that I wrote by myself. I think that was like in 11th grade or whatever, and they just started evolving. Those were like the first, you pick a couple songs, riffs that you start with. We used to jam a couple copies and stuff, play Iron Maiden, play some Motorhead, Tigers of Pantang, stuff like that. And we just started accumulating songs because we knew we wanted to be an original band. And back in the 80s, especially in Ohio, you couldn't be a copy band. Nowadays, everybody's plays in copy bands and they make a lot of money, but nobody wanted to hear that. In the Cleveland scene especially, they wanted to hear original music. So that was an inspiration, and the other bands of the scene who were already out there a couple of years older than us gave us hope and influence that, we're going to make a band, we're going to start playing live, and hopefully this will make us rich. Didn't happen. All of my equipment I steal from other musicians. So I play Gibson. I like Gibson guitars. I have some Ibanez guitars. I love playing through Marshall. I have a JCM 800. That's the head that really suits my sound, I think. And I have an array of some effects, some delays, crybaby, stuff like that. So.
Okay, I've been playing bass guitar for about 30 years now, and with Destructor, I play a Rickenbacker all the time. Nice instrument for this kind of music. I think every bass player should have that, like in a thrash metal band. I use a lot of compression. I use a compressor pedal, and also use a little bit of a distortion. Way huge green rhino pedal I just got recently, and that thing gives me some nice growl for this band. It really works great. And I also use an acoustic bass amp. I think them things are so underrated. I got a pretty good tone. I love the tone I got. And I got a lot of people say the same thing. They like the tone I got.
I'm a guitar player, and I've been playing since I was 12 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Mostly now I use Ibanez guitars. I was a big Jackson guy for a long time. Kind of pricey, and kind of got really into the Ibanez stuff. Actually back in the 80s, also at the same time I was doing the Jackson stuff, and learned that I preferred those necks more than anything else. Old Ibanez RG760s, they don't make them anymore, but buy them up on eBay whenever I see them pop up. I've got like 6 or 7 of them right now. Also, I use angle amplification. I have an angle Powerball, and just an amazing sounding amp. I don't use many effects. I use a delay for solos, and that's it. I go straight, keep it simple.
In the 80s, we had a nice career. It was going for about 5 years or so. Unfortunately, our bass player, Dave Holocaust, was murdered on New Year's Eve, 1988. And that really sent the band into a downward spiral. We had, tentatively, we were going to be signed to Island Records, which was the same label that Anthrax was already on. And it was very difficult when we started going through the trial and all that. The record label decided they were going to pass on us, and so once we lost Dave and then we lost the record deal and stuff, it was just very difficult for us to rebound, especially in the scene at the time, because in the late 80s things were turning into hair metal, and then grunge was about to come around the corner especially in the United States. So if it wasn't for fans around the world, Europe in particular, that helped keep the music alive, we may have hung it up a long time ago. But for all intents and purposes, in the 90s, the heavy metal that we played was all but dead. Smashing the guitar. Frost and Fire was a special show for us. It was our first time in California, and we had a blast. I didn't want to take one of my really good guitars with me because traveling on an airplane, they throw your suitcases around like the Gorillas and the Samsonite commercials. So I had purchased this guitar for a few $100s and had it set up professionally, and was really, played really well. But this was the first time I ever played the guitar live, and it was sort of like in the back of my mind, I was saying to Nick, I'm gonna smash this guitar. He's like, don't smash the guitar, I'll buy it from you. But as soon as the energy kicked in and the last rock and roll ending of the set, I decided I'm gonna start swinging this sucker around and see what happens. So, and it's kind of leaves a memorable or leaves a good memory for the fans when they see something like that. And it was a perfect stage for it because it was a gigantic stage. You try to smash guitars on a smaller stage, you end up hitting your fellow bandmates. So.
Okay, the Frost and Fire show last night was a real deal. It was a real concert venue thing. Everybody kicked ass at this show. My buddies from Midnight killed it last night. Them guys are amazing. And Night Demon also. And everybody's been really cool to us. It's been a really great experience even to come up to California, and that's the first time I ever seen the ocean on this side of the United States. So it was awesome. It was kick-ass.
I remember we did this one show at the Agora. I think was that the Agora. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it was a Metal Massacre show or something like that. And the stage was huge, and they had this giant backdrop. I mean, it was like 20 feet behind me. It was like a big curtain. And I remember I was up on this real high riser, and at the end of the show, I got up and I was dumping my drums and all that kind of shit. And I stepped back, and I stepped off the riser, and I fell down about 10 feet or so down on my back, and I landed on the drapes that were hanging up there, man. And all I could see them waving like crazy. I thought I was gonna die because I thought the whole thing was gonna come down on top of me. It was like, holy shit. Lucky they were there because it kind of stopped me from really hitting the ground hard. So that was one little funny thing. All right, one of the other shows I made this prop. I made this big fucking sledgehammer, man. It was like made out of foam rubber and stuff, but in a carpet roll, the cardboard tube. It was this giant sledgehammer, and I was pounding on Dave. I almost broke his neck with the thing. It was real heavy. I was like, I hit him on the head with it. I was like, and it ended up out in the middle of the street after the show. So somebody took it out, and then it ended up in the middle of the rain. That was a variety show, right? Variety theater, yeah. I was driving to one of the shows, maybe Maryland or something, I can't remember, and my car broke down. And I started hoofing it, it's like thumbing the ride, I got picked up by this car with these girls in it. And I get in the back seat, and there's a midget in the front seat. And she started squirting all this baby oil on me and stuff, and it's like... These chicks were going crazy. They're stripping and everything. It was all having all this sex in the back seat and stuff. It was crazy, man. It was surreal. Finally got to the show. I wasn't late either. Well, the one practice is where I actually got my name, Flammable. We were practicing in this warehouse, and the heat was real bad. Sometimes we had heat, and sometimes we didn't. I remember we were practicing in the wintertime, And it used to get so, I used to get so hot, you know, I don't know if you see like the football players when they're sitting on the sideline and the steam's coming off of them and stuff, that's what happened. I was jamming and stuff and the steam was coming off of me and it came up with the word, you know, the name flammable, and it just stuck ever since then. That was kind of interesting. That was I remember there was another show we were playing and the idea was to bash up some of my drums and stuff, and I had this one set of toms on a stand that I was going to destroy, and I picked it up and I was going to smash them on the stage, and the microphones were still clipped to it, you know, and the sound guy come running out while I had him over my head and I was ready to smash him. He's yelling at me, my microphones, and he's like trying to get his microphones off my drums before I smashed them on the ground and stuff, you know. It was kind of funny too because there was a couple kids that were fighting over one of the drums, and it was a real big guy and his little kid, and it was at a theater, and the big guy was pulling on the drum and he was like dragging the kid over the seats, like it's funny too. There's some funny shit, man, back in the day, I swear to God. People were crazy.
Well, the photo session came about for Maximum Destruction because we just thought, destruction, what's going to look like? We need rubble, we need a destroyed building, we need something that's going to sell the title Maximum Destruction. And we found a site in downtown Cleveland that was a building was just leveled, and we got behind the fence with the photographer and took some photos. And it was almost like, let's do it kind of, if we can, like Motorhead Ace of Spades, where like they're standing on the hill and you see the sky behind them, you know, sand dune or whatever. And basically that was how that record cover came about. Nowadays, we like to use a lot of art, and I have a good friend, Larry Weber, who does a lot of the artwork for Vulgar Devils and Destructor. So we're pretty happy with a lot of the covers and the style that we've been able to achieve. My advice to kids nowadays is stay in school. Don't do drugs. Don't listen to heavy metal. No, I'm just kidding. Well, listen to heavy metal, that you can do that, but don't do drugs. What was the question? That's good.
One of the biggest lessons that I learned in this band is I shouldn't be a musician. I should have become an accountant instead.
Other bands, let's see. Well, there was a band that basically evolved after Destructor decided to go on hiatus for a little while. It was called Space Corps, and we were influenced by the band Hawkwind. We actually put the band together to open up for Hawkwind, and we just decided, hey, this is pretty cool. So for about 5 years, we were doing like space rock, space metal. I haven't been in that many other bands. I just started on 4 years ago a solo project called Vulgar Devils, and Mac joined that. He plays the drums. That's different than Destructor, but it's still hard rock, heavy metal. It's something that is close to my heart. It's basically a lot of the things that I grew up listening to, like Motorhead and AC/DC and some of that stuff from the 70s and the early 80s. I took those kind of influences and started writing some songs and came up with the name Vulgar Devils. And so we made a record, and we're probably going to record another one next year. So,
God, that's, man, that's bands that I've been in. I was in a pop punk band back in the mid 70s, late 70s. That was kind of interesting. I lost a good job because of that band, though. I went to New York for some showcases, supposed to be with some record labels. You know, we played in Greenwich Village and at CBGB's and stuff like that, and there wasn't any record companies there. I don't know if the bass player, that guy was running the band or something, was pulling my leg, but nobody ever showed up for any record labels, and I lost my job that I had. I was working for the First Energy Company, CEI, it's Cleveland Energy and Illuminating Company. You know, that was a good job that I had with them. And I came back and they said, "No, sorry, you don't work for us no more," because broke some kind of union rule or something because I left town, you know. And then I was with that band with Jim Hamar and Ian, Holy Terror. But never really got to work out too much. Well, that pop punk band that I was in the 70s, we played out quite a bit. But you know, the biggest thing, of course, has been Destructor. So
I've been in a million bands. A lot of them, you know, most of them, it's a very fragile thing sometimes to be in a band because it's very fragile. My very first band, I was in a band called Decimator in the late 80s and early 90s. And that's the first band I was able to play all original music in the Cleveland area. It didn't last long. I was only there for a couple years. And then a couple of years later, I ran the Nick Janakis is the lead guitar player in this band. I started jamming with him in a band called Castle Black, and I was with them for a while. And then, like even Dave was talking about earlier, the metal scene just took a nosedive in the 90s, really bad. So eventually I got back with Nick years later, like almost a decade later, and I joined Wretch with him. And I've been in that band for the last almost 15 years now. And let's keep it rocking and rolling and, you know, jamming with some good buddies and awesome musicians from the Cleveland area.
Yeah, the other band that was in Wretch is still active now and currently on Pure Steel Records. We've been putting out multiple albums over the last several years. Back in the 80s, we were never really able to put out a full-length album. We were on a compilation album on Auburn Records and put out some demo stuff, and that was it. Weirdly, this stuff made it overseas. I don't know how. So we acquired a little bit of a fan base over there, and it's progressed now to where we're able to go there every couple of years and tour for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And things have been going well with that. Some other bands I've been in, I was actually in Breaker for a while, in late 2008, 2009, somewhere around there, I don't remember now. Did a couple shows with them. I think I went over to Germany and did the Bang Your Head Festival with them. It was weird because we've all known each other from back then. Breaker, Destructor, Shock Paris, Wretch, Purgatory, all of us, we all knew each other, we hung out, we did stuff, we'd play shows together, and it was cool because it was a very cool scene at the time. We all knew each other, and the shows were fun, and a lot of people used to show up, and we all fed off that stuff. It was great. So that's why jamming with these guys and even Breaker, it was just easy. We've known each other, so it wasn't like, all right, how am I going to get along with these guys? You know, how's it going to fit? It just worked. Always has. So it's been a good thing.
The Cleveland metal scene back in the 80s, it was great. I mean, there was a lot of bands, a lot of original talent. One thing that I thought was really cool is none of the bands were really the same. You know, you had Black Death, you had Breaker, Shock Paris, and then Destructor came around and shook things up. For a while there, a lot of those bands didn't want to do shows with us anymore after we did like 1 or 2 shows because the people would go crazy and, you know, they just didn't think much about Destructor, like, oh, they're just, you know, they're like cavemen and, you know, we're a better band and stuff like that. But the camaraderie, you know, still existed, and we get along great with all those bands now. It's kind of cool that a lot of them are still in existence. I mean, Sicky Spacek, he's a wild man. Him and I are good friends, and we still see a lot of the other members of other bands around shows and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, Cleveland metal scene was pretty happening at the time, and it was like bands coming out of the woodwork left and right, it seemed like. So it was pretty cool back then.
I used to go visit Breaker's practice spot all the time and go headbanging and stuff on there, jamming and stuff. That was pretty cool. That was really in the beginning. It was even earlier, before Breaker had their name Breaker. They were called Matriarch, and I used to go visit them. That's what kind of upset me when they took the bass player and the singer from us in the band that I was in. It was like, you know, sort of created some animosity. And I remember one time I think it might have been the same show that I fell off the stage. It was we were playing with Wretch, and their old singer, their original singer, Colin, he was in a hurry one time or something, and I said something to him, and I got him kind of pissed off because he thought I was insinuating something about his weight, and he got mad at me. I wasn't really trying to do anything to him, but he got pissed at me, couldn't help it. It's like, dude.
Okay, the scene back in the 80s. I actually live outside, about an hour outside of Cleveland, a smaller town. But I've been doing the original stuff. I've been in a band called Wretch since 1985. I'm the last original member in that band that's still active. And we've always been lucky enough to go up to Cleveland and play, and have had good success. 90s, we took the nosedive just like everybody else, broke up, didn't do anything for the longest time, got back together in early 2000s, put out an album out with our original singer, and then we had some issues with him. The band started to fall apart a little bit, so I was looking to do something else just in case, and that's when we hooked up with Destructor. And these guys, I've known them since back in the 80s. We did a bunch of shows together, so it was a pretty easy fit. We've always gotten along, and we still do, and it's been going strong ever since, so it's a good thing.
Yeah, so in 1999, I think it was 1999, the band decided to reunite. We were getting interest from Europe, and people were asking, what's up with the band, and we really didn't believe and had no idea that there was still a following and people wanted to hear this kind of music, especially from Destructor. So that, when we decided to get back together again, a lot of things started to happen, and really that kind of metal, that US metal, that old school metal, was really catching on in Europe and stuff, and people really love that and cherish that kind of stuff now, which is great. I mean, a lot of younger people are listening to like Angel Witch and listening to Tank and stuff like that, where I thought all of that music was forgotten except for guys my age, or and a lot of women are into heavy metal now. Back in the 80s, it was like, the only girls at the shows were, girlfriend of the guy that dragged her to go see, Slayer or something like that. But things have changed, and for the better. And heavy metal is, I think, it has a positive future. And the fans in Europe really, I think, are the ones that we owe a lot of that to. The guys in the band, we hate each other.
That tension creates good music.
Yeah, we don't care for each other at all. No, just kidding. It is like a family. The band has changed lineups over the past few years. We just lost Pat Rabbit. He succumbed to diabetes and some other health issues. He was a founding member of the band. But for the most part, it's like a family. It's like having 3 wives that you never get to sleep with. So. But we all have the common goal, and that's to make good music and to have fun.